This is the Sunday stream opening song because the other song is copyrighted. La 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 la. Oh look, here comes Dog Cat Fox.
Hi, Sky.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Sunday stream. The stream I do on Sundays because Sunday is the day to stream on Sundays. Hope you're all doing well on this beautiful Sunday morning. It's a little beautiful out. Of course, yesterday it was murky dismal. Now, if you get that reference, you are an old. But today it's kind of misty out, kind of sunny. It's nice. Hope you're all having a good morning as well. I've had my cocoa, and now I'm ready to talk about the news of the week, or at least some of the news. Not all of it. I can't cover all of it, but some of it. But who's joining me on this beautiful Sunday morning? Mike R., good morning. Old Guy Gamer, good morning. And Old Guy Gamer had a lot to say prior to the show starting. Oh my gosh. If a lion escapes a circus/zoo in Africa, does anyone care? My wife had the best answer to this question. If everything tastes like chicken, frogs, legs, rattlesnake, alligator, what does chicken taste like? Ask a rooster. Okay. Well, there you go. The Alexander. Good morning. Young Geezer. Wait a second. Old Guy Gamer, Young Geezer. Are you guys like in competition with one another or something? Adam Nixon. Good morning. JB. Good morning to you. I made fun of Trump and now my house is going to be strafed by an AC-130 gunship because I've been marked as an enemy combatant. Pray for me, giant spaghetti monster. Okay, sure. Mr. E, good morning. What happens next? Oh my gosh. TF Oryx, good morning. Random American, good morning. Derek LaRue, thank you so much, Derek. Appreciate it very much. Good morning to you. Thank you so much for your generosity and support, as always. Hope you're having a good morning and hope you enjoy the show. Thanks again. Let's see. Some Namnyol Nation, good morning. And thanks for sharing out the stream. Some Namnyol Nation, also Old Guy Gamer. Tall Person, good morning. Dagger3K, good morning. Tyr Alexander, The Scourge, good morning. Resolute Germ, good morning. The Best Remy, good morning. Josh Hammond, good morning. Simon Willikins, good morning. Fostonia, good morning. Jamie Melquist, good morning to you. Toku154, good morning. Anybody else? Holy cow. Mike Savage, Blarg. Advocatus Diaboli, good morning. And I think that's everybody. If I missed anyone, if you're lurking, if you're in the future, good morning to you. Yes, well, it's been an eventful week this week, if you didn't know. Fairly eventful. I don't know. I mean, some things might have happened. But, man, if you wanted a preamble as to what we've seen in the last couple of days, the revelations about the Kamala Harris campaign, you know, I'll confess, and I said so on election night, I was taken in, as I think a lot of people were, on the uncertainty of the outcome of the election. I wasn't sure. Given the wonkiness of the previous election, given the mood of the country and how everybody was split, I was told over and over and over again. I was like, I'm not sure. But insofar as not being sure about Kamala Harris as an effective campaigner or fundraiser or spender of money, I'm no Johnny-come-lately. Because if you'll recall, over and over again, I talked about and I mentioned, you know, when she first ran for president, she had a $40 million war chest that absolutely evaporated and got her absolutely nowhere, and she didn't even get her own state to support her by the time the primaries rolled around. So, should we be surprised that money was mismanaged in her presidential campaign the second time? Probably not. Oh, Brian Morissette, good morning to you. But let's see just how bad it has been. I got a couple of stories here. If you didn't already know this, a couple of stories here, just absolute bonkers. Let's take a look. Harris campaign reportedly spent 6 figures to build set for Call Her Daddy podcast. Declined free Joe Rogan interview. This is absolutely nutballs. Absolutely nuts. I'm surprised it didn't come out earlier. Because I heard for like a week, oh my gosh, she's on the Call Her Daddy podcast. I'd never heard of the Call Her Daddy podcast before this happened. So I didn't know, but no, this is so stupid You won't believe it. The Kamala Harris campaign reportedly spent six figures to recreate the set for Alex Cooper's Call Her Daddy podcast on which the vice president appeared. Despite the late start, the vice president's campaign raised more than $1 billion. $1 billion, dwarfing the campaign funding of Donald Trump. And just as we learned from the Beto O'Rourke versus Ted Cruz election or competition from a couple of years ago, just because you got a lot of money doesn't mean you're going to win. Proven again and again. But anyway, by November 6th, however, the campaign found itself on the wrong end of 270 electoral votes and $20 million in debt. Now, stop for a second, do the math in your head. They raised $1 billion. By the end of the campaign, they were $20 million in debt. That means they spent $1.2 billion, the 0.2 of which they did not actually have and are still trying to make up for. And they lost everything. The popular vote, the electoral college, the whole 9 yards, and then some. In a Friday report, Gabe Kaminsky of the Washington Examiner took a closer look at just how the Harris campaign went through so much money in such a short amount of time. Included in that spending was $654 million on advertising between July 22nd and Election Day. $654 million. So over half of that $1 billion went just into advertising. They spent more on advertising than most Disney movies need to make back to break even on production and everything else. $654 million just advertising. Harris in early October was interviewed by Cooper for an episode of Call Her Daddy, one of the biggest podcasts on the internet with a largely female audience. Again, prior to this happening, I'd never heard of this podcast. Ever. So I guess I'm just on the outs, I guess. I don't know. For the interview, Cooper had to travel to Harris, and the episode was taped in a hotel room decorated to look like her normal set. That effort cost the campaign 6 figures, according to Kaminsky. Cooper detailed the process in a pair of TikTok videos. Now, I'm not going to play the TikTok video. I don't care, but just think about this for a second. You're Kamala Harris, right? You're operating in D.C. Now, I understand she is the sitting vice president. In addition to her campaigning, she probably has other duties she has to fulfill as vice president and so on. So, flying from D.C. to Los Angeles just for an interview might be a bit hinky to the schedule. I'll extend you that. But in this day and age, your options are, then, have a Zoom call with your podcast interviewer, which is, not unheard of these days, and not necessarily somehow gauche. Or fly the podcaster out to DC and you have an interview at a local radio station, or maybe in a hotel room with one of those black backdrops like a Charlie Rose interview or something. Okay, fine. No big deal. I mean, a lot of people that are listening to this aren't actually looking at it. But no, instead of that, they spend over, 6 figures. 6 figures on recreating the lady's set where she does her podcasts in LA, in DC, just so they can sit down and look like she's in LA. I wonder if the donors to the Harris campaign understood that they'd be paying for window dressing. Window dressing, by the way, that got this. In the month since its premiere, it has been a month since this premiere happened, where you had to make the set for the visual purpose of making it look like Kamala Harris was on the lady's usual set. In the month since its premiere, the episode has been viewed more than 800,000 times on YouTube. 800,000 times! Wow! Let's talk about the rest of it. Harris also had the chance to appear on the Joe Rogan Experience free of charge, but Rogan insisted on her coming to his studio in Austin, Texas. She preferred to have him travel to her, because she can't be traveling to anybody else. So the interview fell through. Trump took Rogan up on his offer, and in less than 2 weeks, the episode had 47 million views. So she spent 6 figures. I'm not quite sure what the amount was. I'm guessing, we'll say over $100,000. to dress up a hotel room to look like a set that's actually in Los Angeles to save herself the cost of a plane ticket in order to get 800,000 views on YouTube for a podcast I don't know that many people have heard of outside the femaleosphere, and gave up on the opportunity to go to Joe Rogan for the price of a plane ticket and get millions of views, which Trump did. Now, let's talk about fiscal restraint. Boy, oh boy, did we dodge a bullet if the thinking behind the Kamala Harris campaign thought that this was a wise way of using donation money. And especially coming out $20 million in the hole. Let's see. Is that it? Okay, that's it. Well, I have a sort of a companion story to this that talks a bit more about other things that were spent on by the campaign. Kamala Harris campaign's election eve concerts said to cost up to $20 million as staff and vendors fear they won't be paid. Oh, the $20 million they're now in debt for? Oh. So at the last minute, after blowing through $1 billion, they spent another $20 million on credit leading up to the election. Well, let's talk about that in a second. Thank you, Kiro Soldier. Should we really be surprised that Dems love to overspend any money they're given, and they've been touting how prosperous the economy is? Oh, I mean, well, they've got $1 billion. If they've got $1 billion, well, heck, $100,000, $200,000 to make dress up a set to pretend that I'm in Los Angeles when I could just buy a plane ticket, or make it part of a fundraising stop on the campaign trail. Heaven forfend, be efficient like that. No. I mean, if Kamala Harris is $1 billion, well, 100,000 here, 100,000 there, who cares? It's incredible. You would have thought, or I guess I should have thought, or I would have thought, that after having a failed presidential campaign back in 2019 that blew through $40 million, I might have learned as a presidential candidate something about restraint, something about budgeting my money for its most effective use. But no, apparently not. So anyway, let's talk about these things. You live, you learn. Finger pointing has erupted over the Kamala Harris campaign, blowing up to $20 million on swing state concerts Monday night, hours before the VP's spectacular election loss to Donald Trump, prompting concern that everyday staff and vendors won't get paid, amid reports the campaign is in debt by the same amount. Members of the defeated Harris team tell the Post that the concerts had a ruinous effect on the Democratic campaign's coffers, and that fact was no secret, with one planned performance by 90s alt-rock goddess Alanis Morissette getting scrapped to save money. But, that was their biggest mistake, because if Alanis Morissette played a concert for Kamala Harris, she would have been a shoo-in, as we know. These 7 swing state concerts... I didn't even know this happened. They had 7 swing state concerts on election. Okay. Well, I mean, I don't live in a swing state, so I guess I wouldn't have heard about this. These 7 swing state concerts on election eve featured performances by John Bon Jovi in Detroit, Christina Aguilera in Las Vegas, Katy Perry in Pittsburgh, and Lady Gaga in Philadelphia, with 2 Chainz joining Harris on November 2nd, 3 days before the election, for an 8th concert in Atlanta. Oh, and maybe it's the concert's fault they failed in all those states. Oh, and here's some photos. We got Lady Gaga. We got Harley Quinn herself. We got John Bon Jovi. Oh my gosh. While the performers donated their time and talent, well, that was nice of them. They're not going into debt, save for their, time and reputations. The set still required an immense commitment of manpower and financial resources. Again, building sets again. Oh, okay. Cutter's plan was supported by fellow Obama alum David Plouffe, one source said. Cutter's plan? Who's Cutter? Did I miss something? Oh, pardon me. I missed a sentence. 2 sources said the Obama campaign alum Stephanie Cutter pushed the concert concept as a way to woo lower propensity voters to the polls. I wonder if Stephanie Cutter is going to be asked to advise on anything after this. Or David Plouffe. Harris added Cutter and Pluff to her campaign shortly after replacing President Biden atop the party's ticket in July, generating internal tensions with the existing Biden campaign team as the newcomer sought to replay the 44th president's successful 2008 campaign. Yeah, except Kamala Harris is no Obama. But they tried to make us think she was the second coming thereof or something. Let's see. Harris Walt's campaign chairwoman Jen O'Malley Dillon ultimately approved the Get Out the Vote concert plans, but has since told colleagues, in response to significant internal criticism, that she didn't want to do them and sat on the idea for weeks, one source told the Post. Why didn't you want to do them? I am dying to read the aftermath tell-all book that comes out of this. I mean, the kind of information that's already coming out and has been leaked previously from Kamala Harris's office, and I'm thinking specifically of that CNN article back in 2021 or so, that was just an absolute scorcher. I can't wait to read the tell-all book about this. Everything that there's just the surface level amount of information that we know about the tensions between the West Wing and Kamala Harris's office, the absolute antipathy Joe Biden had for Kamala Harris during the course of most of the campaign, and how it manifested itself over and over again with her being pushed to the sidelines until there was no choice, but she had to be the candidate, and all of a sudden, oh yeah, she's the greatest person ever. There's even stories out, and this has been rumored before, that him stepping out of the race, and within an hour or two of that, immediately endorsing Kamala Harris, destroyed the Democrats' plans to have an open primary. Now, there was an interview with Nancy Pelosi just the other day, and I can't play it because it's like 40 minutes long, but you can look this up. I think it was with the New York Times. But Nancy Pelosi gave an interview the other day where she was asked about the lead up to the campaign and the election. And she said that their plan was to have an open primary, to actually have a competition between, well, Kamala Harris and anybody else who wanted to try to make a shot at it. And such a thing, if Kamala Harris had won such a contest, would have better legitimized her potential for being a candidate going into 2024. But it seems as though Biden headed that possibility off at the pass, endorsed Kamala Harris from the get-go, and then there was no real political way to get around the president's personal endorsement of his own vice president, and then to try to initiate a primary. So they were stuck. And for all the brainlessness that Biden may now possess, even he understood what a loser candidate Kamala Harris was. And what a bad outcome might be for either the Democrats if she won, or certainly if she lost. I cannot wait for all the dirt to be aired. It's going to be great. Anyway, O'Malley Dillon didn't want to do the concerts. If that was the case, another source pointed out, then O'Malley Dillon's waffling led to increased production costs because, quote, putting concerts together last minute makes them cost twice as much, unquote. But I mean, really, what's another $20 million here or there? I mean, it really doesn't matter, right? It's not my money. Yeah, it's somebody else's money. It's the campaign's money. It's the Democratic Party's money. Yeah. The second source questioned whether campaign operations chief Dana Rosenzweig should have raised internal concerns earlier in the planning, though a third defended her and argued the campaign budget team would have had that responsibility. Oh, so everybody's pointing fingers as to whose responsibility it was on the costs and the spending. Nobody wants to take a responsibility or accountability. Sounds familiar. Quote, they said they were spending to zero. I guess they overshot zero, quipped the second source. We're spending to zero. Who has a plan for that in life that isn't a child? What adult is given a budget on anything and says that their goal is to spend to zero? Coming in under budget is always the preferred strategy and always the thing that you try to aim for. If you're a responsible adult, you don't want to spend to zero. Because everybody knows Murphy's Law, there are going to be unforeseen costs. So if somebody said, you have $1 billion budget, Scribe, you have $1 billion budget to build up your YouTube empire, I'd say, okay, I'm going to spend $20,000. Because what the heck do I need $1 billion for crying out? But anyway, okay, let's say for some reason I thought I needed something like $1 billion to build my YouTube empire. I'd say, okay, well, I'm going to spend up to $750 million. I'm going to leave aside, wait, that's, about that. That's $750 million. And I'll leave the rest aside as either cost overruns or investment or something else. Because I'm a responsible adult. We're going to spend to zero. I want to know who on the campaign was the genius who said that and who else endorsed it. How, good gravy. I feel, at least I feel good for the people who benefited from that $1 billion. And, unfortunately, I might be one of the people who's not going to benefit. Because for those of you that joined me on my election stream, some of you, I did monetize it. I did roll the dice on monetizing that. Some of you may recall, several of you reported that the ads you saw as you logged into the stream were ads for Kamala Harris. So conceivably, from their advertising budget, if they still had one, I'm going to be receiving some few pennies of that $1 billion or of that $20 million overrun. I can't say I feel bad about it. As it happened, the events hardly made a splash in the news cycle, with the exception of the Philadelphia rally, where Oprah Winfrey stole the show by claiming that Trump winning might mean, quote, we will not have the opportunity to cast a ballot again, unquote. Yes, remember everyone, with Donald Trump winning the election, democracy is dead. But remember, we'll vote him out next time. Or something. Voters in each of the 7 swing states turned out the next day to elect Trump, the former president and Republican nominee. Picture. Quote, they had huge advance teams for these concerts, like 40 to 60 people in some cities, said an insider who told the Post that they are concerned about the financial impact on people who work to elect Harris. I'm glad you're concerned. Quote, I'm sure vendors will start to get upset soon, the source added, noting that staff payments do not seem to be impacted so far, though expense reimbursements are still pending. In the week before Election Day, as campaign bosses became aware that nearly all of their more than $1 billion war chest was gone, again, if you want a preview of this, look at Kamala's previous presidential campaign. $40 million evaporated. The more than $1 billion war chest was gone. There were efforts to scale back concert costs. Only at the 11th hour, which were expected to run between $15 million and $20 million, but in some cases experienced overruns. Well, I mean, you had to spend to zero. Quote, they definitely knew the budget crunch at the end. Okay, because they cut talent from some cities because of cost, the source said, adding that Morissette's show got the axe just 2 days before the scheduled performance. Oh boy. Thank you, this is Kyle. How you doing, Kyle? Want to know what makes it a point to not spend under budget? Oh, okay, city maintenance. If they spend under budget, then they get less budget the next year. True enough. Yeah, you use it or lose it in some instances. But that's... And I don't necessarily agree with that either. You spend what you need to maintain the infrastructure and so on. But that aside, as far as a campaign thing, like I said, you would have thought that she learned something from her previous attempt at the presidency. Maybe not spending to zero. But here we are. Let's see. A different Harris campaign source said that finance staff currently are in the process of reconciling the balance sheets and that nobody has been stiffed. Well, I truly do hope that's the case. I hope that anybody who put in the labor, time, expense, etc. of helping out the Harris campaign, failed or otherwise, they get their payments. I hope that's so. Another source called the events, quote, a real misuse of funds that could have been better spent on ads laying out economic policy. Economic policy. Yeah, tell me about your oh man. The jokes just write themselves, don't they? Laying out economic policies to voters angered about inflation and high interest rates, and government overspending. Who's spamming my chat? What? Okay, I don't know who this guy is, but Yeah, goodbye. Okay. Yeah, I don't know who that is. All right. Thank you guys. Wow, it's a rare day where the moderators have to do something in the chat. Well, there you go. I just noticed out of the corner of my eye that as soon as you start seeing repetition of something over and over and over and over again, I'm like, oh, okay. So anyway, sorry for the distraction there. That's been taken care of. Thank you guys. Let's see. Quote, it didn't matter to have a bunch of celebrities talking to no one because 1, 75 million people already voted, and 2, people were concerned about their own financial issues, not Oprah telling them America won't exist, this source said. I don't understand spending anything anything of note really, in the 4 or 5 days leading up to the election. Most people have already made up their minds. You can shore things up a little bit here with campaign ads and get out the vote stuff, maybe, that kind of thing. But concerts? That's something you do like early on or maybe mid-campaign. Now, admittedly, Kamala Harris was afforded very little time to campaign in relative terms. Okay, I've said this previously. Whatever else might be said about Kamala Harris, no politician would have wanted to be put in the position that she was put in by Joe Biden or the Democratic Party to have to campaign with only a 3 or 4 month lead up to the election. That's nuts to begin with. She didn't do herself any favors by waiting 2 months to do an interview, but that's beside the point. That's on her. But either way, if you're going to do that kind of stuff, you start early. And I'm still absolutely bewildered that she and her staff did not or had not previously gamed out some kind of campaign strategy to have go from get running off the get-go if Biden had to step down for some reason, medically or otherwise, or had chosen not to run again before. They didn't have any plans in place. They didn't have any actions they could have taken or had ready to go. They had no notice that this was going to happen enough that they could start doing something. I guess not. I guess I shouldn't be surprised, but there you go. Let's see. Despite the enormous fundraising haul in the 107-day campaign spring, the Harris campaign ended the race at least $20 million in debt, Politico reported Thursday. Donation web pages remain active in the apparent hope that an after-the-fact trickle of funds to close the gap. Yes, even though we failed in our campaign, even though we overspent $1 billion and more, please donate to us to close the gap. Spokespeople for the Harris campaign and Morissette did not respond to the post's request for comment. The other thing they don't mention here, which is really hilarious, Trump put out a tweet yesterday, either a tweet or on Truth Social or something. I don't have it here to quote it exactly, but he put out a message of unity and conciliation. And he said, we have a lot of money left over from our campaign, so if it'll help out and sort of like, bring the country together and ease concerns and bring some unity, just let us know. So Donald Trump is offering to cover Kamala Harris's campaign debt, which is just, if you want to talk about king of trolls, it's something else. It would be amazing if she took him up took him up on that offer, I should say. That'd be great. Let's see. Mr. Scott, she probably would have gotten more votes if Biden dropped out later. I mean, it's fair to say that if she hadn't had the opportunity over the ensuing months to consistently embarrass herself over and over and over again, it's possible. It's possible that simply the lack of options, the lack of time, it's not Trump, might have done her better in the overall vote total, but I don't think she would have won. Or at least I think the results would have been relatively similar. But of course, that's me talking with hindsight as 2020. I was taken in by the idea that it was a super, super close election and that just a few percentage points here or there was going to decide it. I still wasn't sure up until election night that she wasn't going to squeak by somehow. But that's also because I was half fueled by, suspicions about the 2020 campaign and other chicanery going on. So, but here we are. I've been thinking about doing an all Kamala, dirty laundry stream in the near future, but I need to get some more articles because things are still coming out. Like every day now, there's some revelation, somebody's leaking something. And I also want to go over the article again from 2021, the long novel-length article, because I read it once before, but I think it's worth going back over it again to see how much, if any, prophecy was sort of given in that article as to what we saw in the last couple of weeks, and what we might be learning more about the campaign as more information presents itself. But so there's your Kamala dose for the day. But let's move on to some adjacent election-type news. This is nuts. A lot of things are nuts today, but this is particularly nuts. FEMA horrified. And they have it in sort of, quotation marks there. I'm wondering how horrified they are. Horrified after confirming workers were directed to avoid homes with Trump signs in hurricane-ravaged Florida community. So there were people worthy of help and those who were not in certain places in Florida on the basis of their implied political leanings. A federal emergency management agency supervisor told disaster relief workers in Florida to, quote, avoid homes, unquote, with signs supporting President-elect Donald Trump, the agency confirmed Friday. The FEMA official, Marnie Washington, Marnie, conveyed her edict both verbally and in a Microsoft Teams chat used by relief workers canvassing Lake Placid homes ravaged by Hurricane Milton last month, according to the Daily Wire. Quote, avoid homes advertising Trump, unquote, Washington wrote in a best practices memo to employees. The order was the second bullet point on a list instructing workers to not go, quote, anywhere alone, and to practice, quote, de-escalation, and stay hydrated, and to, quote, follow the rules. FEMA employees told the outlet that at least 20 homes displaying Trump signs or flags, a common sight during election season, were passed between the end of October and into November because of the order. I wonder if anybody in those at least 20 homes needed help, that they were denied. I wonder if anyone suffered any further injury or tragedy or death because they picked the wrong candidate. Quote, Trump sign no entry per leadership. Trump sign no entry per leadership, okay? Read messages left by workers in FEMA's tracking system when homes were skipped because of the banners. Oh, I see, it's truncated. Trump sign, no entry per leadership. So leadership told me not to enter a home with a Trump sign, therefore I didn't. Okay. By ignoring the homes, residents were denied the opportunity to sign up for federal FEMA disaster relief assistance in the wake of the Category 3 hurricane's landfall. A FEMA spokesperson confirmed that orders to bypass the homes of Trump supporters were given and said that the agency was, quote, deeply disturbed by this employee's actions, unquote. Well, I got a question. Where was the oversight? Did any of the recipient employees think that that was a weird thing to say and not report it elsewise or question it? Quote, FEMA helps all survivors regardless of their political preference or affiliation. Well, apparently not. And we are deeply disturbed by this employee's actions, the agency spokesperson told the Post Friday night. Quote, while we believe this is an isolated incident, is it? Or isn't it? We have taken measures to remove the employee from their role and are investigating the matter to prevent this from happening ever again, they added. How did it occur? I mean, I can believe that some nutball sent this stuff out to her underlings. I don't understand how that didn't immediately cause red flags with anybody who was supposed to be supervising this person, or how anybody under her didn't report this upwards in the chain. That seems bizarre. Quote, the employee who issued this guidance had no authority. Had no authority. Well, people were responding as though, I'm passing by this house because leadership told me to. Okay. Had no authority and was given no direction to tell teams to avoid these homes, and we are reaching out to the people who may have not been reached as a result of this incident. Okay. Quote, we are horrified that this took place and therefore have taken extreme actions to correct this situation and have ensured that the matter was addressed at all levels, the rep said. How? I mean, I'm willing to extend the benefit of the doubt, but like how specifically? What did you do? I'm assuming this lady lost her job and or may have charges placed upon her in some way, shape, or form, or other sanctions. But what did you do? Republican Florida Governor Ron DeSantis fumed over the incident Friday, arguing that it was emblematic of the Harris-Biden administration's, quote, weaponization, unquote, of government. Until I'm shown something otherwise, I can believe this was a lone nut. Until you show me something more, systematic, let's say, or systemic. Quote, the blatant weaponization of government by partisan activists in the federal bureaucracy is yet another reason why the Biden-Harris administration is in its final days, DeSantis wrote on X. Quote, at my direction, the Division of Emergency Management is launching an investigation into the federal government's targeted discrimination of Floridians who supported Trump, he added. I really do hope it was just one lone nut. I really do. If it was anything more than that, oh boy. Quote, new leadership is on the way in D.C., and I'm optimistic that these partisan bureaucrats will be fired, unquote. The FEMA supervisor's guidance was issued after the Harris-Biden administration came under fire from Trump, Vice President-elect J.D. Vance, and residents of the area affected by Hurricane Helene over the federal government's brutally slow response to the disaster. FEMA employees told the Daily Wire that Washington, the individual, not the place I'm assuming, has not been punished for the guidance. Hold on. FEMA employees told the Daily Wire that Washington has not been punished for the guidance and was simply shifted to a different Florida county. However, a FEMA spokesperson told the Post that Washington, quote, is no longer working in the state of Florida or in any FEMA operations at this moment, unquote, pending the outcome of an investigation. Well, that's a long list of words that don't say she's been fired. Okay, so the employees say she hasn't been fired. FEMA has quite literally not said she's been fired. She's just been... there's places she's not working. She's not working in FEMA operations. She's not working in the state of Florida. But she hasn't been terminated from her job. So exactly what do you need to do to get fired from FEMA? If not restricting help to people in a disaster area because they might be on the wrong side of the political spectrum to your liking. That's, it's one of those things where the absence of information tells you quite a bit. That's something else. Okay, well, I hope that lady gets fired. I hope she is otherwise pursued for further consequences. And that if anybody else in FEMA was pushing that kind of thing, either officially or unofficially, that they are discovered and consequences befall them. Because of all the times and places to start playing politics, people victimized by a natural disaster. Okay. Not that we haven't seen this before. I mean, you will recall, those of you who paid attention in social media, the nigh-on death cults that formed around the pandemic. And not just on one side of the aisle or the other, but both. But anyway. Shadowclaw. Usually it isn't just one person, it's just the woman that issued the order was fired. Oh, no, she wasn't fired. At least we don't know that she's been fired yet. No. Yeah, well, this is the thing. If you see it once, it's possible that it's happened several times. And this is just the first instance that was recorded and caught. So if this was performed, if something like this was issued by other places and other individuals, I hope they find them, because that's ridiculous. Can you imagine? You're in your home, you're trapped, you're suffering, you've lost everything, you need assistance, you're supposedly waiting for the government, the mechanisms of government that are there to try and help when these things happen. And you don't even know that they've come and gone because they decided, oh, well, if you're for Trump, you don't deserve any help. Can you imagine if the roles were reversed? Can you imagine the outcry from the media, the absolute bedlam that would occur if some Trump organizer in FEMA decided to pass by a Harris Waltz house because they're on the wrong team? Would you believe, or can you even imagine what the outcry would be after that? And rightfully so. But boy, howdy, did we hear about any of this from the mainstream for the most? No. No. You know, a story here and there, but no, it's fine. Moving on. Stevie Day, don't worry, citizen. The government is bringing an electric chainsaw if you don't support Trump. Right. Yeah, we'll cut you out of your house. We'll help you refund your life that's been destroyed. But only if you pick the right candidate. And we were told to be so scared about totalitarianism and fascism and dictatorial behavior. Jeez. Oh, man. All right. Well, anyway, there you go. Now let's move on to some more election aftermath. Because there's a real victim here. Okay. Now, you might think, oh, well, all of the, reasonable, but maybe perhaps misguided people who put their faith in Kamala Harris, maybe the people who still weren't quite on Team Trump and wanted some stability or something, or believed in the promises of the Democrats and so on. Maybe you could have some sympathy for them. But really, the real victim here is Harper Steele. Now you might ask yourself, who's Harper Steele? Well, Harper Steele is really important, guys. As I've been told over and over again by Will Ferrell and Netflix, somebody I'd never heard of before because he changed his name. But now Harper Steele's the real... Here you go. Harper Steele doesn't give a F about politicians and pundits blaming Kamala Harris' loss on Democrats' support of transgender rights. We're not here to be the sacrifice. Okay. Now, I have consumed and absorbed a lot of information about the causes for Kamala Harris's loss over the last several days. I think we all have. But I got to tell you, I don't recall anyone focusing at all on her support of transgender rights. But I guess that was the deciding factor. I guess Harper Steele, the demographic that he's put himself in, I guess that's why Kamala Harris lost? Let's find out. As political pundits spent the hours and days after the election dissecting why they thought Donald Trump beat Kamala Harris so badly at the ballot box, some blamed the Democratic Party's so-called wokeness, particularly its support of transgender rights, for the loss. I guess some may have. Quote, the Democrats have to stop pandering to the far left. Well, I agree. New York Democratic Representative Tom Suzy Q told the New York Times, quote, I don't want to discriminate against anybody, but I don't think biological boys should be playing in girls' sports. Democrats aren't saying that, and they should be, unquote. I tend to agree. But I don't think that was a key criticism of the Kamala Harris campaign in the overall. It was in there, it's included, but I think there were other things much more at stake. I think if you look at, the economy stupid as one, or immigration, or our funding of foreign wars, or stances thereof, I think those were the top three. MSNBC's Joe Scarborough also blasted the left for embracing trans rights because it was too scared of offending, quote, some small subset of their base, unquote. Well, if it's such a small subset of their base, then why would it have been all that vital to deciding the election? Harper Steele, whose transition and friendship with Will Ferrell was chronicled in the recent Netflix documentary Will and Harper, is having none of that. Oh, well, I mean, if Harper Steele's not having any of that, somebody I hadn't even heard of until about 4 months ago. Okay. Quote, I don't give a F about those people, she says. Trans people are not the canary in the cave. You know what I mean? We're not here to be the sacrifice that we're going to make so the rest of us can live. That's effed up. I can make compromises, but trans people are not a compromise, unquote. So wait, are you saying that your discussions over your demographic were or weren't the cause of the... What? Okay. Will and Harper followed Steele and Ferrell on a road trip they took from New York City to Los Angeles. Yeah, and how well did that go? We covered at least one story in that. Steele had made the journey many times before, but the movie captured her first time crossing the country after her transition. So what? I still wonder, so what? She insists she's not worried about doing the same post-election. Okay. Quote, I'm not scared at all, she says. I'd go across by myself right now. There are bad actors, but I'm pretty good at noticing bad actors. I'm sure it's more dangerous today than it was 3 months ago or 2 years or whatever. Why? So wait, it's more dangerous today than 3 months ago. Why? But I'm not afraid to go across my country. It's still my country. They're not taking that away from me. Who's they? What? Okay, this is the reporter talking. I caught up with Steele on Friday over Zoom from her home in New York State. She was getting ready to fly to San Francisco to join Will and Harper director Josh Greenbaum at a Saturday screening and Q&A for the film. Hasn't that been out for like months and months now? Okay. On Sunday, she and Farrell will be honored in Los Angeles at the ACLU Foundation of Southern California's annual Bill of Rights Awards. Why? Okay, the following Q&A has been edited and condensed. Do I really want to... Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Okay, I thought this was just an article. I did not know this was going to be a lecture. Let me find at least a good question or so. Okay, when you see that the Trump campaign spent so much money on anti-trans ads to get their base and undecided voters fired up, okay, what goes through your mind? According to Ad Impact, the Republican Party spent nearly $250 million on anti-trans network TV ads. What is an anti-trans ad? Are you talking about keeping biological males out of sports or what? Okay, it's horrifying, okay? There are 531 bills, I believe, that are out there that are anti-LGBTQ bills. Like what? If you're just talking about sports, it's not anti-LGBTQ. Okay. Anti-LGBT being considered in state houses at this very moment. So trans people have never had it very good, and it's tough for me to speak on those issues on some level because I'm sort of a protected environment and I carry around a lot of privilege. How? You're not safe traveling from one end of the country to the other, or you're less safe now than you were 3 months ago. Which is it? But it's horrifying. It's just absolutely... What is horrifying? I think the two biggest issues in what they were targeting was healthcare and sports. You mean like giving gender alteration surgery to illegal immigrants in prison? That kind of policy? Or biological males playing in sports against biological females? Yeah. So that's anti-trans. It's not anti-waste of taxpayer money or anti-unfair competition. Okay. Sports and trans youth were the overall hot-button issues. Yeah. And I'm a big proponent for trans youth healthcare, so this is very scary. Trans youth healthcare. Okay. I don't know what to tell you. Leave the children alone. 9 times out of 10, if you find some child who says they are trans, what you actually have there are a parent or parents who are suffering from Munchausen by proxy. It just... Stop. Let's see. I spoke to Laverne Cox yesterday, and she wasn't the first person who told me this, but trans folks are now stockpiling estrogen and testosterone if they can. Are you doing that for fear that it might not be available? Last I checked, if you are a grown adult of sound mind, in relative terms, and you find a doctor willing to supply you with the medicine and/or treatments necessary to transition, that was available in the past, it'll be available in the future. Unless I've missed something. Quote, I literally thought about doing that yesterday and what that would mean. I'm not projecting a Dallas Buyers Club for this stuff at some point. Yeah, because, transition and the AIDS crisis are right up there with being the same thing. But it is scary to think that that's something we would be doing. If I ran out of my estrogen, it would destroy me. These are literally life-saving drugs for me. It would be devastating. You're not going to run out of estrogen. People will still sell you estrogen after all this. Okay, I'm done. I don't want to read any more of that. I thought there was something more to it. There's not much more to it. But there you go. Let's see. Did I have something else? I had a couple other things here. Let's see. Oh yeah, I got a CNN article. How about a CNN article? Yeah, because really the news this week is really all about the aftermath of the election. Can't get away from it. And honestly, there's a certain level of schadenfreude that I can't avoid. I'm so glad she did not win. I can't tell you how glad I am she did not win. And the more that we're finding out after the fact just galvanizes my relief, and probably several others. Let's see. Jill Powers, River Daughter. Too much estrogen is bad too, so is too much testosterone for women. Yeah, there's a balance. And most times, unless you're struck with a particular condition or three, your body does that naturally for you. So, Stevie J, they feel like it's normal, but normies are shocked when they learn about their desire to give surgeries and drugs to children. Yeah. There was a TEDx I did a long time ago. It's a relatively famous, it was a TED Talk or TEDx that was talking about, it had a lady on stage advocating for preteen surgeries for transgender. Prepubescent teenagers getting the surgery they need to align with their gender identity. And the thumbnail I made up for it is cheeky in a fashion, but also kind of horrifying. I just called it Nip Tuck for Kids. And it was one of the tougher TEDx's to have to sit through, because the lady, if you listen to what she was saying and the implications thereof, it was stomach churning. If you actually imagined what would happen, or what is happening, with what she was suggesting. But that's a whole other subject for another day, I suppose. Maybe there'll be another TEDx soon I can take a look at. Let's see. All right, here's something else, and this is just a preview of what's to come and already happening. So, we just had an election. It was an utter landslide for Donald Trump. He won not only the popular vote, but also the electoral vote. And even, I think just today, the official word came in from, was it Nevada, I think? I think that the Nevada results were finally affirmed or certified that he won Nevada. Anyway, he won, he ran the board, as they say. Well, apparently not learning a lesson from the results of the electorate, we have Resistance 2.0 in process. You remember the Resistance? After Trump won the first time, the Resistance, the crybabies, the nutballs, thinking that they were the vanguard in favor of democracy after losing an election. Well, the cornered animals are getting even more desperate. And here we have the heroes of the oncoming defense of democracy, I guess. Democratic governors and AGs prepare for battle with Trump administration. Okay. Democratic governors and attorneys general are beginning to build a Resistance 2.0, talking tough and promising new laws, like what? And legal battles, like what? As they seek to insulate their states from the conservative policies they expect President-elect Donald Trump to implement. And already Trump is firing back. An early preview of the consequential court, regulatory, and political fights that now loom in 2025 and beyond. California Governor Gavin Newsom on Thursday called state lawmakers into a special session later this year. So he scheduled a session for later this year. Okay. In a bid to protect the state's progressive policies on issues like abortion rights. Abortion rights are now to the states individually, so Trump can't really affect them. And he's said he's glad they went to the states. So what more are you expecting? And I'm asking sincerely. Last I heard, it's now a states' rights issue, and Trump is happy with that, being as it is. But okay. And climate change. Okay. From the incoming administration and Republicans who won U.S. Senate control and could also hold the majority in the U.S. House. Quote, "The freedoms we hold dear in California are under attack, and we won't sit idle," Newsom said in a statement. Okay, such as what? Specifically, what freedoms does California currently hold that are under attack or under threat? And if they are under threat through democratic processes, what are you planning on doing? In a Truth Social post Friday, Trump said Newsom, who he called New Scum, is, quote, "trying to kill our nation's beautiful California," unquote. He said homelessness and grocery prices are out of control in the state and said he will demand changes to the state's voting laws to require voter identification and proof of citizenship. Oh my God! Oh my, you mean you actually have to affirm you're a citizen of this country in order to vote in this country's elections? Oh no! Also, California is and has been a wasteland of homelessness and poop and just destruction and crime. I mean, it was only just in the last few weeks, wasn't it, this election, where they finally made shoplifting a felony again. It was a misdemeanor before. Everybody got a slap on the wrist, but now it's a felony again. If you steal from a store, it's not just some minor inconvenience. It's not jaywalking. It's actually a felony. Imagine, I forget who said this, but it was a great line. Instead of locking up the toothpaste, how about locking up the thieves? Newsom is far from the only Democratic governor preparing to take on Trump. Oh boy, gosh, remember when they took on Trump the last time? Remember they were like, we're going to stand against Trump's xenophobic immigration policies. Everybody and their brothers welcome in our state. I seem to recall New York City and New York State, Kathy Hochul and Adams saying very similar things. How'd that turn out for him? In blue states like Illinois, Massachusetts, and New York, officials are already vowing to mount legal and policy fights against the incoming Trump administration on issues like abortion rights. Abortion rights are a state-by-state issue now. It's actually been taken out of the federal government's hands. So unless you know something I don't, and it's possible, tell me, oh tell me true. Environmental regulations, gun control, immigration enforcement, and more. Okay. The early moves come as the Democratic Party enters a period of soul-searching over how Trump trounced Vice President Kamala Harris across the map and what the party's path forward looks like. Well, you know, it might be too much to wonder, just for a moment, if the very policies you're getting ready to, galvanize and push back against Trump are the very reasons why you lost, since a majority of the country doesn't see things the way you do. You might consider that leading up to your own election cycles. It's all unfolding with one eye on 2028. With a lame duck president and a lost Senate majority, Democrats have no clear national leader. Yeah, and that's mainly Joe Biden's fault. And the Democrats' fault. Ambitious governors who declined to challenge Harris's quick ascension after President Joe Biden's July exit from the 2024 race won't have to defer to anyone in 4 years. It's true. The 2028 election is going to be an open field. I'm actually looking forward to that. Can you imagine how tooth and nail the Democrats are going to fight one another once 2028 rolls around to try to find a leader? It's going to be something. That presidential primary won't start now or anytime soon, but the second Trump era will offer Democratic officials opportunities to showcase their own leadership. I think they've had a few years now to showcase their leadership and what that leadership has wrought to their constituents. And you can take the word rot in both of its possible spellings, to showcase their own leadership as they position themselves for potential future runs. Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker the billionaire, who said he has been preparing for a raft of potential Trump policies, vowed to protect women who travel to Illinois for abortions and defend environmental regulations. Okay. Again, it's a state-by-state thing. He also said the state would take legal action if necessary to prohibit federal grants from being withheld from blue states that do not cooperate with Trump's deportation efforts. I was actually talking to my father about this yesterday. We were talking about the aftermath of the election. And he made a good point, something that I believe I said at least several times in the past. In the first Trump administration, and I have several videos on this, there were many states, cities, jurisdictions elsewise who refused to assist any ICE efforts to deport illegal immigrants within their jurisdiction. And I thought to myself, as many people have, well, hey, if the local authorities are not going to abide by federal law, that thing that's within the Constitution, that thing you took an oath to when you became a law enforcement officer, then maybe those states or jurisdictions will just, veto themselves from receiving federal support in the future. Trump threatened to do that very thing back in his first administration. I think he was blocked by several courts or so on in trying to take that action. But I'd still say, yeah, if you are a local law enforcement officer and you have taken an oath to the Constitution and the federal government seeks to enforce laws on the books when it comes to immigration or the punishing of illegal immigration, and you decline to do so in protest, well then, maybe you should also not receive any federal funding. It's just a thought. You come for my people, you come through me, Pritzker told reporters Thursday. Your people are illegal immigrants? Is that what you mean? Okay. New York Governor Kathy Hochul told reporters, well, here's the thing. Okay, well, Illinois Governor Pritzker, what you're effectively saying is, come unto me, all you illegal immigrants. So if it wasn't already bad enough what's been happening in Chicago, since all the illegal immigrants have been showing up or being bussed in, you want to double down on that position for the sake of your state, your constituents, and the welfare thereof. You're effectively saying, yes, we will continue to be a sanctuary state under a Trump administration. Okay. Speaking of such declarations, New York Governor Kathy Hochul told reporters Wednesday that her state will not, quote, accept an agenda from Washington that strips away the rights that New Yorkers have long enjoyed, unquote. Such as what? The state's Attorney General, Letitia James, told reporters she isn't afraid of Trump and said in a statement she is, quote, ready to fight back again, unquote. Okay, against what specifically? And I'm asking sincerely, they keep talking about this. Oh, he's going to threaten our rights, our freedoms. Which ones? Like, what is it that you see happening? Massachusetts Governor Moira Healey, who 15 months ago declared a state of emergency over an influx of migrants to her state seeking shelter with housing in short supply, said Thursday on MSNBC that the state police would, quote, absolutely not, unquote, help Trump's deportation efforts. Why? Quote, every tool in the toolbox is going to be used to protect our citizens. Wait. Citizens? To protect our residents and protect our states, and certainly to hold the line on democracy and the rule of law as a basic principle. Okay, tell me about the rule of law when applied to an illegal immigrant. What does that first word in that term indicate to you? Also, citizens? You guys have learned nothing. Not only do you make no sense, just in any era at all, but you are parroting exactly what Kathy Hochul said about New York, what Eric Adams said about New York City, what so many other sanctuary states and cities have been saying for years now, until the chickens basically came home to roost and they actually had to deal with a whole bunch of people that they weren't prepared to support. And even in a state where Massachusetts, declared a state of emergency. That isn't enough for her TDS to take over. Tell me the definition of insanity. A less combative tone. Some Democratic governors, including those widely seen as potential 2028 presidential contenders, did not immediately take aim at Trump's incoming administration. Oh, you mean the smarter ones? Maryland Governor Wes Moore noted that his state, which neighbors the nation's capital, and the federal government are, quote, deeply intertwined, unquote, and that the federal government is his state's biggest employer. Oh, well, pragmatic. Quote, we are ready to push back on this new White House when necessary, Moore said at a cabinet meeting Friday. Quote, but where we can find common ground, we will, unquote. Well, that's remarkably reasonable. Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer, a co-chair of the Harris campaign, said in a statement Wednesday that she hopes Trump, quote, leads by trying to unite people, including those who did not vote for him or do not support him, unquote. Well, I'll tell you what, I don't recall that there was a whole lot of criticism of potential Harris voters as, I don't know, National Socialists of the 1930s. I think there was a lot of criticism of Harris herself and her policies, but I don't seem to remember hearing trumpeted, no pun intended, a lot of recriminations over the electorate from Trump's camp. Unlike the Harris campaign, but that's a whole other conversation. Quote, as we move forward, let's remember that we are a nation of good, kind people that have more in common with each other than not, unquote, she said. Quote, finally, let's root for the success of the new administration and keep working together to get things done, unquote. Well, now, I don't know what Gretchen Whitmer has said or done prior to the outcome of the election, so perhaps there's some hypocrisy there somewhere, but if that is her attitude going forward, I agree. Keep with the John Wayne philosophy if you happen to be on the losing side of this. I didn't vote for him, but he's my president, and I hope he does a good job. If you stick with that, you'll probably be better off. Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro, who's probably very glad, ultimately, that Kamala Harris did not end up picking him for vice president, said in a statement he will, quote, never back down from standing up for the freedoms I was elected to protect. Such as what? But he also said that, quote, now that this election is over, it is time to govern, to work together, to compromise, and to get stuff done, unquote. All right. Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, the losing Democratic vice presidential nominee, gave his first speech after returning home Friday afternoon. He said Trump and his running mate, Vice President-elect J.D. Vance, campaigned on a pledge to leave decisions to the states. And that he's, quote, willing to take them at their word for that, unquote. Wow, Tim, that's great. Quote, but the moment they try to bring a hateful agenda to this state, I'm ready to stand up and fight for the way we do things here, unquote. He said, quote, Minnesota always has and always will be there to bring shelter from the storm. Walt specifically pointed to abortion rights. It's a state-by-state issue now. Good gravy, these guys. You know, they had 50 years some odd to codify Roe v. Wade. There's been at least a handful of instances where the Democrats had enough heft in the executive and the legislative that they could have seriously attempted to codify Roe v. Wade into federal law, instead of letting it sit up there at the Supreme Court, hovering over as just a glorified suggestion. But it was too good of an issue to keep milking, to keep having it sitting on a teetering edge all the time, cycle after cycle. It was too good a topic to grill potential Supreme Court justices on and federal justices on over and over again. And then finally the clock ran out, and now it's to the states. Go convince the state legislatures, state by state, to your side, one side or the other. That's it. And it's not going to leave there for a long time, if at all. So they keep bringing up, we're going to defend against, abortion rights. Well, then defend it in your own state. It's got nothing to do with the federal government now. Just as the federal government didn't take any meaningful action to codify Roe v. Wade into law, the likelihood that they will take federal action to outlaw it nationwide when you have so many states that have the choice now, is pretty much zip. So what are you talking about? Waltz specifically pointed to abortion rights, climate change, gun restrictions in schools. Well, I mean, Waltz is friends with school shooters, so I suppose he would be concerned about that. And labor rights as areas where he said he will be, quote, ready to defend the progress we've made here in Minnesota, unquote. The progress? I remember many of your major cities burning down just a couple of years ago, and you just kind of sat by and said, great. Parsing 2024 results. Other Democratic governors were trying to make sense of how Harris had lost. I mean, it is quite bewildering. Even as liberals won on policy measures such as Arizona voters voting a 15-week abortion ban, Missouri's passage of ballot measures protecting abortion rights, raising the minimum wage and guaranteeing paid sick leave, and Kentucky's rejection of a private school voucher program. Gosh, how did Harris lose when all these policy things are doing so well? Maybe it's because Harris sucked. She just sucked. She was a terrible candidate, ran a terrible campaign. As we're finding out now, to the degree that we are, mismanaged all of her campaign funds. And if you needed any hints as to how that was going to turn out, really, she did it once before. Quote, I think the concept of common ground and common sense is what this country is looking for, Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear said Friday on CNN. Is that what you're... we can't know alternate universe stuff. I really would love to be able to look at through a magic mirror and see exactly what these same guys would have been saying if Kamala Harris would have won. Would they be saying that they want to find common ground and common sense with the Republicans if they had won? I'd really love to know. Noting that he won re-election last year by 5 percentage points and Trump just notched a 31-point win there, Beshear said Democrats would be wrong to think the party's only problem in 2024 was its messaging. Well, it's not just the messaging, true, which he said is tantamount to suggesting we're doing all the right things, but we're not talking about it in the right way, unquote. In other words, Beshear is looking at his political future and having to make some major concessions because he's seeing which way the wind's blowing. Quote, what I think is maybe more important is focus, he said, adding that Democrats need to make sure the party is focused on issues that directly affect voters' daily lives. Yeah, true, and also not telling voters that their concerns are meaningless. Like, I can't pay for eggs. Oh, shush you. Our economy is the strongest in the world. You ever see that clip of Don Lemon talking to people about the issues leading up to the election? And, some J-random person he's talking on the street and he's asking, what's your major concern right now? So, the economy, my ability to pay my bills and everything else. And Don Lemon's like, but we have the strongest economy in the world. Like, and they laugh at him. It's great. Harris closed her presidential campaign focused largely on defending democracy and freedom. Because it was... I don't know how many people... Obviously, not a lot of people really thought that threat was legitimate in the first place. Right? Oh, if you vote for Trump, you're voting to end democracy. Obviously, you guys thought that was some real winner of an argument when it was just absolute hyperbole over and over again. Ever since January 6th. Oh my God, democracy's at stake. Democracy's at stake. And casting Trump, who fought to overturn the results of his 2020 loss, as a threat to the nation's founding principles through running an election and campaigning and so on. Yeah. Quote, what it suggests is that people are looking for a better life, Beshear said. Oh, what it suggests, everybody's always looking for a better life. My parents were looking for a better life for their kids than they had it when they were growing up. It's the chain of concern from one generation to the next. What it suggests, like it's some revelation. Quote, and these elections have to be focused on convincing voters that that's what we're focused on too. Yeah, well, how about practice what you preach? That we're going to spend 90% of our time on the issues that matter most to you, that are probably the least political issues that are out there, but the ones that impact people every single day. Yeah, if you improve people's lives, regardless of what party you're from, you're probably going to win more people to your side than focusing on special interests and subsets of subsets, trying to, declare your virtue all the time. If people can't pay for milk and eggs like they used to be able to, it doesn't matter what side of the fence they swing on. It's basic necessities. It's the economy, stupid. I was actually surprised. I'm seeing this footage of James Carville, the guy who basically coined the term, it's the economy, stupid, and how much he was thinking Kamala Harris was going to win under the current conditions. Now, maybe he was just being wishful thinking or something, but his assurance is, Kamala Harris is going to win, Kamala Harris is going to win. And I'm like, James, I don't know if you remember your own campaign under Clinton. I don't know if you remember your own slogans. Josh Stein, the North Carolina Attorney General and Governor-elect, said on MSNBC Thursday that he was proud to see Democrats win a series of statewide races, even as Trump won the state's electoral college votes. He said Democrats have to, quote, reassure folks that you actually care for them, and that you're going to work on issues that matter to them. Good ideas don't have a home in one party, he said. People have a lot of the same interests, no matter who they are. Well, apparently the Democrats did not and still have not learned that lesson. Because they're still going on the democracy's under threat, we have to defend abortion rights and climate change and so on. I don't know if you've noticed, that didn't work for you in winning the presidency, or most of the Senate, or most of the House. But, okay. Keep on at it, I suppose. Take a minute here for you guys. Let's see what we got going on. Let's see. Shadowclaw, Scribelight. Harris couldn't excel over 3%. That should show how overperformed she did. Oh yeah, she overperformed. Overperformed. 100% AstroTurf popularity, says Faithless. Yeah, when she came into the anointment, I won't say nomination, the anointment, everybody seemed to suddenly forget. She was just clawing for relevance back in February. She was effectively a non-entity in the Biden administration up to that point. She had been so sent to the sidelines because of an absolute failure that she had been to that stage. Everybody said, like, oh my gosh, she's the greatest thing since sliced bread. Oh my gosh, Kamala Harris, we're so excited, so excited. Where were you guys a year ago when you were begging for her to be dropped from the ticket? It was quite incredible. Quite incredible, the artificial turnaround. Thank you, Fostonia, for the dancing kabuki dogcat fox. Oh, dogcat fox.
Wowie, wow, wow.
Ooh, there's a Shadowclaw dogcat fox. Thank you so much, Fostonia. Appreciate it. Let's see. What else we got here? Jill Powers, the River Daughter. I don't understand why they would be so stupid to install her and ignore that she was dead last in the 2020 Dem primary. Horrible choice. Well, this is the mystery of the entire thing. She was the worst performer in the 2020 election. She couldn't even get her own state to support her in the primaries. She was pulled from oblivion by Joe Biden. I remember on Lords of the Night when we were covering the election and everything, and I still have them here somewhere. Hold on a second. I won't stop pulling this stuff up because it's just so hilarious to me. The amount of pushing and promoting that they were giving Kamala back in the day. Let me find it here. I love this image, and I just retweeted it back to Chris Cillizza the other day. How Kamala Harris wins, January 21st, 2019. How Kamala Harris wins. Man, I mean, that sounds pretty assured, doesn't it? And she came in dead last, if you can believe it. And they were so excited over her at that time for reasons I still don't understand. But no, she was the bee's knees. But she lost utterly. And then she was pulled from obscurity by Joe Biden. Why? Because, as he told us in 2019 and reiterated in 2020, he wanted to have a female vice president, preferably one of color. Okay. And so we already knew she was a lame duck going in because she wasn't chosen for her merit. She wasn't chosen because she was somehow extremely popular. She wasn't chosen because she had polled strongly in some, Republican states or something. Like, oh, wow, she had really good numbers in Utah and Arkansas. Like she was going to be some kind of electoral boon or something to Biden. No, there's only 3 reasons I can think of why he picked her. Oh, well, I'll say 4. 1, she's a female. 2, she's not white. 3, she was not nearly as impressive as Joe Biden and thus wouldn't outshine him on the campaign trail. Right. And 4, the only other mildly practical reason I could see him picking her of all people was that during the course of the 2020 campaign, and especially in that one debate, she was the most vocally opposing Biden, especially on that busing issue, than anybody else on the stage. Nobody else went after Biden quite as fiercely as she did. So maybe his calculus, and this is just my speculation, maybe his calculus was if she represented any element of the Democratic base that was uncertain about Biden's legitimacy or potential or anything else, then maybe bringing her on would be sort of a unifying measure. So maybe that. But if you just look at her presidential campaign performance by itself, she was an absolute loser. Absolute loser. But even with all of that as preamble, jump ahead 5 years, and Chris Liz is still like, how Kamala wins. I mean, if you don't learn your lesson the first time around, I guess just go in full force on the second time. That was funny to see. When I saw that, I knew I had to capture that for posterity's sake. Man, our favorite friend, formerly at CNN, still doesn't fail to impress. I don't understand how so many people didn't look at past performance for prediction of future events. It was amazing to me. Now, here's the thing. On the spending, I wanted to mention something. I wish I'd paid more attention to the amount of spending and stuff. Of course, some of this stuff's only coming out now after action reports and things. But I had thought, part of me in the back of my mind thought, okay, when Kamala Harris ran her presidential campaign back in 2019, she probably had, a semi-experienced, but not exactly super professional, super dug-in team to help her with financial spending and advertising and marketing and getting out the vote stuff and everything. So $40 million being misspent or blown away, not good, but okay. But this time around, I thought, well, this time she's got the entire Democratic apparatus around her. She's not just somebody from California running for president. She's now the acting vice president of the United States. She's got the endorsement of the president. She has the Democratic National Committee behind her. I mean, they have to be far more experienced and far more disciplined when it comes to targeting campaign funds and this, that, and the other. So even though I thought, well, she had a bad habit of misspending money previously, there's got to be some controls or some, brakes on the machine in this instance, right? Well, I'm admittedly very much surprised that it is as bad as they say. She has now put her campaign half as much in debt as the totality of the budget of her first campaign. And that's less the $1 billion they'd already had. It's something else. It's something else. But yeah, I don't understand why anybody thought that she was a good choice in the first place. And I think Biden got some revenge on the people that pushed him out by endorsing her immediately upon his stepping back or stepping down. There's this one clip after he made the announcement of him like grinning at the camera. And everybody's interpreting it now as like, haha, you'll see, I gotcha. And, at least as of right now, unless something proves elsewise, Biden still gets to claim that he's the only politician that ever defeated Trump. That crown does not go to someone else now. He's probably happy about that. But, it's amazing. Ebony Williams, I don't know if you've seen this, but there's a clip from The View arguing amongst themselves about why Kamala... Oh, yeah, I've seen all over the place. Joe Scarborough blaming the racist Latinos and such. The View just losing their minds trying to wrap their heads around this. Doing everything except self-reflection. Everything except, gee, maybe we were wrong. Maybe the product we were promoting wasn't any good. I made this joke the day after the election, but I think it's absolutely true. The Acolyte on Disney Plus didn't get a season 2, guys, because of all the racists and the sexists. It really was Disney kowtowing to the racists and the sexists why there's not an Acolyte season 2. Exact same mentality. They simply cannot admit that they had a dud of a candidate and a dud of a message, and that ultimately what they've been promoting and defending for the last 4 years has been a failure, an embarrassment. They've been propping up a walking corpse. And it was, and this is the thing that really frustrates me. Anybody who was paying attention knew this to be the case when Biden was running for president in the first place. Him hiding in the basement, him stumbling over his words. Oh, but not until he had his debate with Donald Trump. Oh, only then did people realize Biden should not have run for a second term. For the betterment of the country overall, Biden should not have run for a second term. Whoever was within his circle at the time that he said he originally said he was only going to be a one-term president. Then he changed his mind. They needed to have stopped him from running again before he announced anything, and actually allowed there to be a primary between Democratic competitors. And if Kamala Harris came out on top of that, well, then so be it. Right? I mean, so be it. At least then she would have had some kind of legitimacy going into the nomination. And we might have actually had a contest. I seriously doubt that if Kamala Harris had gone up against some real competition in an open primary, she would have come out on top, which would have been embarrassing as all heck for the Biden administration, but them's the breaks. And I would have been surprised if anybody of note would have actually challenged her on the basis of the optics of challenging the first female vice president, first female of color vice president, first heir apparent to the throne of the presidency, etc. But it would have been a heck of a lot more interesting and a heck of a lot more legitimate than what we got. Instead, Biden screwed everything up. First he picked Kamala Harris, then he decided to run again, and then every single day that he was running for president, he was stealing a day away from some more legitimate candidates who might have come in to primary. And then all the way up until the last minute of the debate, suddenly everybody knows that Biden's not a viable candidate. He's a viable president, guys, but no, he's not a viable candidate. There are now rumors or suggestions that Kamala Harris may run for California governor in 2026. Now, Ranting Monkey thinks that she's going to walk away with such a election if she decides to run for California governor in 2026. I'm not so convinced. I could see her running. I don't know if California, after all this, and especially 2 more years down the road, would be so excited about having Kamala Harris be their governor. I've been wrong before, but on this one, I'll be very happy to see Kamala Harris lose for a third time at a lesser position than the last 2 times she ran for anything. But I guess we'll see. So if you live in California, just keep an eye out. It's possible. It's possible. Kamala Harris might be coming soon to run for governor. Let's see. Anything else before I wrap things up and my voice completely goes sideways? Your internet's favorite lunatic, or your ridiculous lunatic. When Anna Kasparian jumped ship, I knew it was going down. She's just smarter rat than most. Yeah, the evolution of Anna Kasparian to finally do some inward examination of not only herself, but also of the party that she's been supporting for so long and the policies thereof, has really been something to see. And it's really refreshing to see somebody actually stop for a second and think critically about what's going on versus the propaganda that she's been spewing out for years and years and years. So I had a conversation with somebody about this the other day. I'll be curious to see if Anna Kasparian still has a job at the Young Turks a year from now, right? Either of being forced out or her choosing to go her own way, as Fleetwood Mac might say. If she decides to go the Rubin direction, or like Jimmy Dore or something, and start her own thing separate from the Young Turks, or maybe ending up on some other publication like, I don't know, if she ended up on Breaking Points or an affiliate there too, I could see that. She's probably going to have more of a home for a career now than she would have if she'd stuck with, deluding herself for 4 or 5 more years. But I guess we'll see. Anyway, everybody, I'm going to call it here because my voice is running out and I'm hitting the 90-minute mark. I want to thank you all for joining me today. By the way, I just did a little project for Tom Connors of Midnight's Edge. He's putting together a new intro video for the Midnight's Edge After Dark show. And he came to me and he said, hey, I'm putting this thing together. Here's this little theme song I cooked up for it. Can you do something to help me out with some images for this? And the theme song he cooked up was an AI-generated thing, but it was based off of the Cheers theme, right? Cheers from, TV. And as soon as I heard the song, I knew exactly what I'd need to do to make that work. And so I'm going to give you a free preview of some of the images that will appear in this opening that I cooked up the other day, in case you're interested. I mean, if you're not interested, I appreciate you guys showing up today. But let me give you a couple here. So first and foremost, there's this one. You've got Mexican Iron Man, Nick Weiser, and Price of Reason there positioned within. Let's see, what was the other one I wanted to show? Where did I put that? Oh, there it is. Okay. Secondly, you've got the famous We Win thing with myself. It's the only time that I put myself in one of these photos. Script Doctor, Price of Reason, and Tom Connors. Let's see, the other one. This one with Valiant Renegade laying on top of a Triceratops because, why not? And the one that I'm actually very proud of. So all the other images already had some color added to them in the original image. So I felt comfortable putting up some color avatars and such. There was one, though, that was sepia tone. Like all sepia tone. I'll show you the original here. And so I had to figure out how am I going to integrate some colored avatars into this. And this is what I came up with. I did a little bit of color correcting and everything on them. Got close, but not quite. But what I am proud of is the reflections. Specifically for Script Doctor. I didn't have an image of Script Doctor's avatar from the back of his head or anything. So I had to do some rough and dirty manipulation to make a back of head version of his avatar for that. And I like that. I'm kind of proud. Anyway, that's just me showing off. I got creative yesterday, and I'm proud of it. Anyway, you can see that coming up on Midnight's Edge After Dark, which will be Tuesday for me at 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern, over on the Midnight's Edge After Dark channel. Otherwise, Wednesday this week, guys, okay? Just letting you know, there's going to be a special TED Excellence this week. It is tentatively scheduled for Wednesday. I'm assuming it's going to be around the same time as usual, but if that changes, do follow me on X to find out when that happens. I'm going to have a guest on, and that guest is the master of the TDS, which doesn't actually stand for Trump Derangement Syndrome, also of the YouTube channel Gothic Therapy, because master of the TDS is, in real life, a therapist, and I have a TED Excellence that actually deals with therapy. And I thought it'd be interesting to have on a professional to talk to me about the merits or the demerits of a TEDx about therapy. So looking forward to that on Wednesday. I still plan on doing the regular TED Excellence on Thursday at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. So follow me on that for that. Be sure to like, share, subscribe, and all that good stuff. Also, would you like to join the Discord server? I've got a Discord link for you already made. I know, how efficient am I? If you'd like to join the Discord server, links in the chat there. Just click on that link. You'll find yourself on the landing channel called Say Hello. And in addition to saying hello, you just have to say the secret word. The secret word will tell me that you watch the stream, are not a bot, and have thus earned the right, the privilege, the entitlement to join the Discord server. And today's secret word is $20 million in debt. Just say hello, $20 million in debt, and I'll know that you watched the stream. Outside of that, everybody, thank you so much for joining me. Moderators, thank you for keeping an eye on things, even though most days you have very little to do because everybody here is so well behaved. And everybody who donated either to myself or, and I think I even forgot to mention this at the top of the chat box, there's a link to the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. If you can please consider donating to that. If you can't, that's fine, but if you can, share that out on social media, that'd be appreciated. Elsewise, everybody, have a good rest of your Sunday. Have a good Monday upcoming. And especially if you're a veteran, happy Veterans Day and remembrance to all the veterans that have come before. If you have the day off, enjoy it. If you don't, I hope you have an easy day at work. And otherwise, everybody, hope you're all safe and well. If you're not well, please get well soon, and I will see you on the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.